Over time, the Fast and Furious franchise has broken a ton of records, and it looks like they might be able to break yet another. Critics are now saying that the franchise can't possibly repeat Marvel's greatest achievement. If you want to find out more about whether they can or not, be sure to stick around till the end of the video. Let's get right into it. First up, can they beat Marvel's greatest achievement? The Fast and Furious franchise is a chance to replicate, if not overcome, the Marvel Universe's biggest achievement. It'll etch them into history as one of the greatest movie franchises to have ever existed. There's just one problem. They don't have a lot of time to do it. See, Vin Diesel, who's the star and producer of the film, recently came out and said that the next two movies from the franchise would be their last.
Only look at past movies when it's related to a story point for the next one. So we're releasing it now, but now we're already a year into pre-production for Fast 10.
That means that the franchise has just two chances to make sure they make history. Considering the size of the budget these movies tend to have, we don't think that'll be that much of an issue. It's been more than 20 years since the first Fast and Furious movie came out. We're never going to forget the excitement we felt watching Vin Diesel and Paul Walker pull off those insane drifts on the cinema screen. The purr of the car's engine, the skills on display, it was the first movie of its kind.
What the hell did you do, hey?
Now, 10 movies later, after having entertained an entire generation, it's time for the franchise to retire. Time to hang up the car keys and sit back and just enjoy the show. It's sad, but it needs to be done. We can't have a franchise go on forever. Who knows? Maybe there'll still be spin-offs that'll come out in the future. Next up are the next two movies their last. The last few Fast and Furious movies showed us that there's no end to the creativity these guys have when it comes to planning out insane car stunts. They decided to show The Rock's character Hobbs holding a missile. They didn't stop there, as they showed a scene where Tej and Roman fly a car to space.
Man, how much candy did you eat?
Well, I eat candy when I get nervous.
Money isn't an object for the people that produce these films. That makes us even more thrilled to see the next few movies because we know that whatever we get from these guys is gonna be awesome. There's no telling what kind of stunts they'll decide to include. However, we know one thing for sure, it'll be awesome. There's one small problem though. While all these scenes are awesome to watch and we can't get over them, for them to happen, the franchise has to constantly revise past storylines and undo a lot of things that they established in the previous movies. A good example is Fast and Furious 6. See, in the last movie before Fast 6, they showed how the whole crew became millionaires. So that probably means that they don't need to work in the underworld anymore, right? They've managed to accomplish what they set out to do. However, cue Fast 6 and boom, the gang is back and ready for action. It's inconsistencies like these that can be a little troubling sometimes. Coming up, Fast X budget is on par with Avengers Infinity War and Endgame. Another wild fact about Fast and Furious movies is the fact that their budget often soars through the roof. We're not gonna lie. It's kind of the main reason why we all love the films. These guys can pull off any stunt imaginable, and it seems to get crazier with every new film that comes out. And now Fast X has a budget that rivals Avengers Infinity War and Endgame. Now to put things into perspective, Fast X has a budget of a whopping $340 million. Compare that to Infinity War's budget of $316 million, and you have to wonder, where are they putting all this money? We guess the answer is pretty simple. The insane action sequences that keep getting wilder with every movie they put out. Avengers Infinity War was one of Marvel's most ambitious movies. It had a large cast of characters who had previously been scattered throughout the Marvel multiverse and were now coming together to fight Thanos. Considering the sheer number of the cast, it's understandable that the movie cost that much to make. Fast X, however, though it has a larger cast than the previous movie, still doesn't manage to justify the insanely high budget they'll have for it. All of this can mean one thing and one thing only. There's probably going to be a benchmark setting stunt pulled off in the movie, and we can't wait to see it happen. Moving on, Fast X is the franchise's version of Infinity War. Now, we know what you're thinking. How can we even begin to compare these two movies, let alone the franchises as a whole? Just bear with us. See, the very first thing you have to understand is that these two movies are very similar in terms of their budget, and that alone gives us a bit of leeway into understanding that this might very well be the Fast and Furious franchise's version of Infinity War. Another thing you guys need to understand is the fact that Infinity War was the second last Marvel movie made before, in essence, the whole thing ended. Of course, there was a whole new phase of Marvel movies waiting for us, but the same can't be said for the Fast and Furious franchise, because lead actor and producer Vin Diesel himself came out and talked about how these would be the last two Fast and Furious films.
We didn't realize for the year that we were watching movies on our couches or on our phones how much we were going to miss sitting in a theater
There's no denying the hard facts. Next up, Fast and Furious 11 has to be their version of Endgame. If we take into account that Fast X is probably going to be their version of Infinity War, then we also need to understand the fact that Fast 11 will probably be the franchise's version of Avengers Endgame. We mean, think about it. Endgame was the final movie in the fourth phase of Marvel movies. Fast 11 is the final movie the franchise will ever release. Another thing we need to take into account is the fact that the writers are probably running out of source material. These guys have been at it for better part of 2 decades. At some point, they're just not going to have anything to write about anymore. We don't even blame them. They've released like 10 movies about the crew at this point. It's gotten so bad that the writers are actively contradicting themselves and bringing back characters that they killed off in previous movies. It's getting more and more out of hand, and at some point, you just need to sit down and understand that, man, there's only so much you can do with the same story. Still though, that isn't going to stop us from being excited to watch the new movies that they have coming out for us. Coming up are the movies worth watching. Okay, this one's a no-brainer. Yes, they are worth watching. Sure, they may not be everyone's cup of tea, but every avid cinema goer has at least one Fast movie in their lifetime. There are no two ways about it. If you want to be considered a movie buff, then you need to have at least watched one of these films. Now, in case there are still some of you out there who are still not convinced that the franchise is worth giving a go, here are a couple of reasons why we think you should give Dominic Toretto a chance. The first is, these movies set a new standard in terms of the insane stunts that can be pulled off on camera every time a new one gets released. We mean, think about it. Who would have thought that any serious action movie like the Fast and Furious franchise would show a literal car with a rocket booster attached to it, flying up to space? That's the type of stuff you'd expect to see in a wacky cartoon like Rick and Morty, not a movie about a crew that pulls off insane heists. Moving on, are people hyped for the movies? To say that people are hyped about this movie would be an understatement. This is one of the best franchises to have ever graced our screen, and we've got to say, no matter how crazy or unbelievable each movie gets, we always find ourselves coming back for more every time an installment gets released. These movies have consistently broken records, and it seems like they'll keep on setting new standards for action movies for many years to come. We still find ourselves binge-watching the whole franchise in anticipation of the next movie to come out. What can we say? It's addictive to see a bald, mildly buff dude drive his car off a cliff and into a private jet. With all that being said, we're sure that every single one of you watching this video right now is as hyped as we are when it comes to waiting for the next Fast and Furious movie to come out. We can't wait to see what Toretto and his crew get themselves into this time, and how they manage to save the day once again. Finally, will Fast 11 be their best movie yet? This is something that has been on everybody's mind since it was announced that Fast 11 will be the last movie the franchise will ever release. The more we think about it, the more it makes sense that Fast and Furious 11 will probably be the biggest movie yet. Now, in case you're wondering why that is, let us break it down for you. See, the first thing to understand is that it's the final movie. It's the end of an era, the culmination of an epic saga, and there's no way they'd end the whole thing without there being an absolute mad lad moment here and there. The very fact that no one knows how they'll manage to top every single other movie they've released for the franchise so far is exactly why you can expect right now that the final Fast and Furious movie will be a record-breaking classic. With that being said, all we can tell you is to buckle up because Fast X is around the corner. Well, that's a wrap for this video. Do you think Fast X will be as good as everyone says it will? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.